All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was just reading an article and they were talking about why the Pittsburgh Steelers will regress this upcoming season. I find it very funny. I find it very, very, very funny. This Pittsburgh Steelers team is very good. They were very solid last season, all things considered. A banged up, weird offensive line. They revamp it, specifically the left side. Kenny Pickett enters year 2. The Steelers won their final 4 games of the season. People like to point at Kenny Pickett and be like, oh, he threw so many interceptions when, yeah, I mean, he wasn't quarterback 1, plays the first month as being the backup quarterback, not seeing any action, and then just gets thrown on in there a month into his rookie career and has to make it work, has to find a way to win games. Yeah, he's going to throw some interceptions. But in the second half of the season, specifically the final 4-game win streak, that Kenny Pickett, an improved Kenny Pickett from those 4 games, like what we've seen in the first 2 preseason games, well, the Pittsburgh Steelers are just getting started. This team's just getting started, man. Defensively, they're sound. I mean, they're absolutely sound. 2 rookies already making big names for themselves. Joey Porter Jr. getting his first interception this past game. You're also seeing Nick Herbig. He's got, 2.5 sacks and a forced fumble. These are rookies. This Steelers defense is top 10 undoubtedly, right? So offensively, well, I could understand some concerns for a young quarterback in Kenny Pickett. However, what we saw in the first 2 preseason games, and I know it's just preseason, however, all summer, all training camp, all preseason, we've seen Kenny Pickett just fully buy into his role. The dude is a leader. He looks like he is in control. He is poised. He knows what he is doing. There's a night and day difference from Kenny Pickett right now to Kenny Pickett last season. Well, when we look outside of Kenny Pickett, even if Kenny were to struggle, well, the Pittsburgh offense is still going to be better than half of the league at worst. This is going to be an offense that hovers around top 10 at the very least, regardless, honestly, of how Kenny Pickett plays, because there's so many weapons on this squad that all Kenny has to do is just not throw interceptions and move the chains, right? Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren. It's probably the most underrated running back duo in the entire National Football League. We mentioned earlier on in the video, which, by the way, before we get into tonight's video, if you guys wouldn't mind hitting that like button, hit that sub button if you haven't already. I post NFL videos every single day, a couple of Steelers videos every single week. If we try and get this video to 500 likes, that would mean the absolute world to me. So what we mentioned in the beginning of the video was the revamped offensive line. You know, the offensive line at the start of the season last year was just not it. So they bring in Isaac Seumalo. They take a draft pick in the first round of Broderick Jones. Money moves. They secure that left side of things. Offensive line is going to be much more improved. And the reason that's such a big deal is because Najee Harris and Pittsburgh in general, rushing-wise, I wouldn't even go as far to say as they struggled last season because they finished in total rushing yards dead in the middle at 16th in the league. But, Najee Harris wasn't Najee Harris last season. A lot had to do with the offensive line. He still was an over 1,000-yard rusher. However, he averages 3.8 yards per carry. I would imagine we're going to see that number being 4+ this upcoming season. And then don't forget about Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren, we've talked about all offseason. Steelers fans knew they got a stud in him last year when he averaged 4.8 yards per carry. He averaged almost 5 yards per carry in his rookie season after being undrafted. This was an undrafted acquisition. So Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, not only can they run, but they also can catch the ball. So more targets for Kenny Pickett. Then the wide receiver room is extremely deep. I mean, Deontay Johnson, Allen Robinson II. We know what we're getting from both of those 2 guys. I'm curious. I can't wait to see Allen Robinson in the regular season in a Steelers jersey. It just looks so right. George Pickens, who had just a slept-on rookie season, borderline Pro Bowler, adding more versatility to his route tree this upcoming season, wants more deep balls. George Pickens is ready for a 1,000+ yard season, and as good as Deontay Johnson is, I actually wouldn't be surprised if this was the year, the sophomore George Pickens, that he establishes himself as the long-term Steelers wide receiver 1. So big things are coming for George Pickens. And as we saw last year, and as we've seen in just a couple of preseason games, there's a great connection. There's already great chemistry with Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and Kenny Pickett. So that's great. And then Calvin Austin III. Calvin Austin III had a phenomenal first preseason game where we saw all the flashes that we have been waiting for. This is a speedster threat. This is a guy who can, run it. This is, jet sweeps, wide receiver screens, special teams like we saw in the last game where he almost brought back a punt return. Calvin Austin III, Matt Canada is going to be able to put him in the right positions where, even if he is wide receiver 4, he's going to have a role on the Steelers this upcoming season. And keep in mind, you never in the NFL have a fully healthy wide receiver room. So having that depth there, having a guy like Calvin Austin III, in my opinion, it is absolutely huge. We take a look at the tight end position. They're also loaded at the tight end spot. Pat Freiermuth, underrated. That's just the reoccurring theme with this Steelers team, specifically their offense. Pat Freiermuth in his second season, just 2 years into the league, this past year, 63 catches, 732 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Keep in mind, his rookie season, he saw 7 touchdowns. So, you're going to see 700-ish yards at least from Pat this upcoming season and at least 5 touchdowns, in my opinion. Then you also drafted Darnell Washington, who already is an athletic freak. It's very rare that you see tight ends, rookie tight ends, I should say, come on into the league and get first team reps immediately. We all know Darnell Washington physically is an absolute beast. You've already heard George Pickens call him the best tight end in the National Football League. While I'm keeping my expectations in check for a second string rookie tight end in Darnell Washington, he's going to be a huge red zone target. He's going to be a huge big time playmaker to have with Kenny Pickett. And he's also a big ass dude. So he's going to be perfect with blocking. But now you're going to be able to throw out there Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington in 2 tight end sets, and the defense can be looking at themselves and being like, well, I don't really know what to do. So offensively, yes, it all is going to come down to Kenny Pickett, but the offense is loaded. It's very secretly loaded, where even if Kenny Pickett in some world was the same as he was in the second half of the year this past year, they're still going to win 10 games. If Kenny Pickett makes that ascension, he doesn't need to be an MVP candidate, but if we see clear, evident, obvious growth, and Kenny Pickett establishes himself as that guy, or at least the short-term guy, well, Pittsburgh could win 12, 13 football games. And honestly, as much as I'm big on the Cincinnati Bengals, they have some injury concerns right now with Joe Burrow. 13 wins you the AFC North. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself. But yeah, their offense is going to be, if I had to take a bet, if this was a gamble, which by the way, obviously this channel is not financial advice, my point is I would imagine their offense ranks somewhere between 10 and 16 if I was a betting man. Now, the hopeful, optimistic fan I am, I could see the Steelers having a top 10 offense. But realistically, I think it'll be somewhere between 10 and 16. Well, defensively, they're going to be top 10, no questions asked about that next season. So if you have a above average or at least average offense and you have an above average borderline elite defense, well, you're going to make the playoffs and you're going to win double-digit games. I also love the Steelers' schedule. However, I don't like looking too much in the schedule. I don't think it really is all that important. But that's it for tonight, man. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. Like I said, I post a bunch of Steelers videos. Steelers fans, you guys changing, blessing my life. I appreciate you guys so much. We are sick as balls right now, but we got through it. Hope it was a good video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your night. But guys, comment down below, where will the Steelers offense rank next?